18 years ago, what was known as the Monday Night Wars came to a close when AOL Time Warner closed World Championship Wrestling for good and sold it to the World Wrestling Federation. The Monday Night Wars is largely considered to be the last boom period in professional wrestling history, and the wrestling business never recovered. It was the most heated battle in all of professional wrestling, with WCW's Monday Nitro on TNT and WWF's Raw is War on the USA Network and later TNN. It was an era like no other. Two professional wrestling organizations butting heads to see who will win the ratings every Monday night. Thanks to WCW and their NWO storyline, as well as stars like Booker T, Goldberg, and Diamond Dallas Page, and the WWF's Attitude Era with stars like The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, Triple H, Mankind, Undertaker, Kane, D-Generation X, and so on and so forth. Because of this era, everybody was into wrestling. Well, not really everybody, but a lot of people. It brought in a large casual audience, specifically the WWF during the Attitude Era, and in 1999 specifically, because that was their highest year in ratings. That was the year they had the highest ratings ever. They were untouchable in 1999. Wrestling had an enormously large audience who wanted to get into wrestling because it was so cool at the time. But of course, all that would soon come to an end. WCW began making huge mistakes starting all the way back in late 1998, and they were doing so many bad mistakes that they lost so much in the ratings, and eventually the WWF came out on top and reigned supreme. However, after WrestleMania X7, and what is arguably considered the greatest WrestleMania of all time, all the wrestling fans left. Well, the casuals anyway. The casuals who wanted to get into wrestling because it was cool. They pretty much disappeared. They've moved on from wrestling. It seems that they all lost interest in the WWF at the time, and considering the Austin heel turn and the invasion angle, I can easily see why. But the problem was there was no alternative. WCW was gone, ECW was gone. They pretty much had nowhere else to go, so those viewers left. They moved on to other things. They moved on to bigger and better things. Vince McMahon and WWE trying to monopolize the wrestling business is largely to blame for the decline, the slow decline of professional wrestling. However, even though WWE had and still has a near-death grip in the wrestling business, many other wrestling alternatives have emerged since the demise of both WCW and ECW. The most notable wrestling alternative in the past 15 or so years is, of course, Total Nonstop Action TNA Wrestling, or as it is called nowadays, Impact Wrestling. TNA was a solid alternative to WWE, with an excellent roster and excellent matches and introducing the six-sided ring. It also had an awesome X Division. However, in the late 2000s, Vince Russo became the head writer for TNA, and as you all know, Vince Russo is known to be quite a controversial figure in the wrestling business. And then in 2010, guys like Hulk Hogan and Eric Bischoff joined TNA, then matches and storylines were being poorly made, and that pretty much damaged the TNA brand in the long run. While Impact Wrestling's booking got much better later on, they could not recover the fan base that they lost in the past decade. And of course, there have been other wrestling alternatives over the years. Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, Combat Zone Wrestling, Chikara, and so on and so forth. But no matter how many indie wrestling alternatives there were in the United States, none of them could fill the void that WCW and ECW once had. WWE continues to be the top wrestling organization to this day, despite their significant decline throughout the years. And with WWE's current booking and the IWC constantly complaining, it seems that nothing is going to change anytime soon. However, a new challenger has emerged. With the help of billionaire Shahid Khan, his son Tony wrestlers Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, they've established a brand new wrestling organization known as All Elite Wrestling, or AEW. Since they were established in late 2018, everybody in the wrestling community has been talking about them. Because it's owned by a millionaire, people have been wondering, will WWE finally get a new direct competitor like they did 20 years ago? Or will it just be another alternative that will soon fade into obscurity? Now, before AEW was established, there was a pay-per-view back in September last year called All In, which was an independent pay-per-view and basically the precursor to AEW. It was organized by Cody Rhodes, the Young Bucks, people like that, the Elite, who would also be the founders of AEW. But I haven't seen All Out yet. But I will say this, I have seen their very first pay-per-view, Double or Nothing, and I can say that the company is off to a great start. I can say that was the best wrestling pay-per-view I have seen in a very, very long time. And I actually liked WrestleMania because Kofi Kingston won the WWE Championship. And there were some good matches as well. But Double or Nothing is easily the best wrestling pay-per-view this year. The Battle Royal during the pre-show, the buy-in was great. The Japanese 6-woman tag match was awesome. The tag match between the Lucha Brothers and the Young Bucks was awesome as well. But the best two matches of that event was Kenny Omega versus Chris Jericho and Cody versus Dustin Rhodes. Especially Cody versus Dustin Rhodes. If you haven't seen that match from Double or Nothing, you are missing out. Holy shit, that match was fucking incredible. That match was brutal. It was a bloodbath. And the very end, where Cody tells Dustin, I need my brother. That almost brought me to tears, not gonna lie. That was a perfect ending to a perfect match. Oh, and you can't forget when Cody destroyed Triple H's throne at his entrance. Holy shit, that was epic. They are making a statement. They ain't fucking around. Cody is making a clear jab, and AEW as well. They're taking jabs at WWE, Triple H, and the McMahons. AEW ain't fucking around. They're coming. They're making a statement. They're making one hell of a statement. AEW Double or Nothing closed with the main event. Chris Jericho versus Kenny Omega, aka Alpha versus Omega 2. Essentially a follow-up to their match at Wrestle Kingdom 12 at New Japan Pro Wrestling, which was for the IWGP United States Championship. While certainly not as good as Cody versus Dustin Rhodes, that match was excellent. And it concluded with the debut of Jon Moxley, which nobody saw coming. And if you don't know, Jon Moxley was formerly known as Dean Ambrose in WWE, a former member of The Shield, along with Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns. Now he is back as Jon Moxley, and he is better than ever. He's here to make a statement. He's gonna kick major ass. After the match ended, he came in and kicked both of their asses. What an ending to Double or Nothing. What an ending to their very first pay-per-view, to an already great card. Now, in terms of attendance record, AEW Double or Nothing sold out way back in February in just under 4 minutes. That's how much of a demand AEW has. And in terms of pay-per-view buys, they sold almost 100,000 pay-per-view buys. Consider this. WWE's last non-WWE Network pay-per-view, which was Elimination Chamber 2014, that had around 180,000, I think. Considering AEW's first pay-per-view, that was impressive. TNA at best could do only 60,000. Like, holy shit, AEW is on a roll. And while Fyter Fest is their next pay-per-view, AEW's next big, really big pay-per-view like Double or Nothing is All Out, which happens this August. And that sold out in just minutes, just like AEW Double or Nothing did. It sold out in like minutes this month. Holy shit. I can't wait to see the pay-per-view buys for that event as well. Hell, I can't wait to see the pay-per-view buys for Fyter Fest as well. So yeah, AEW is off to a great start. Meanwhile, on the other side of the fence, WWE, the status quo of professional wrestling, has been declining, not just in quality, but in ratings and attendance as well. The last episode of Raw had an low ratings record, not just a low ratings record, but a low attendance record. The lowest attendance record for this week's Raw was actually 3,500. Yeah, 3,500! That's how low the attendance was on Raw. That is unbelievably low. And you want to know what's worse? Last Saudi Arabia pay-per-view, WWE Super Showdown, had an attendance of 30,000, like under 30,000 in an arena that could hold 60,000. They couldn't even sell out half of the arena. That is how badly they're doing. That is how badly they're struggling in both ratings and attendance. And they're doing so badly that they actually hired Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman as the executives for Raw and SmackDown, respectively. Actually, I think Eric Bischoff is running SmackDown while Paul Heyman is running Raw, but you get my drift. That just shows how scared of AEW Vince is. How the McMahons are scared of AEW. Remember, AEW is also run by millionaires. Shahid Khan can match Vince McMahon dollar for dollar. So while AEW is doing very well financially in terms of pay-per-view buys, the real test is when their weekly TV show on TNT premieres this October. Now the reason why I've made this video today is because AEW's next pay-per-view, Fyter Fest, happens tonight at 8 o'clock Eastern, with their pre-show, The Buy-In, happening at 7, an hour earlier. And AEW Fyter Fest will be absolutely free to watch on the Bleacher Report Live app. So you don't have to pay at all to watch Fyter Fest. You can watch it for free on that app. Now, with all that being said, can AEW grow and become a solid competitor to WWE and even go as far as dethroning WWE as the top wrestling organization in the world? Or will it become just another TNA? Well, all we have to do is stay tuned to find out. I'm Allie, and you're watching A Square.